What's up? I'm Tyler.
And I'm Dakota.
And this is the Bourbon and Business Podcast,
where we interview successful businessmen and women to let you in on why success doesn't have a single formula to follow.
We also have a little bourbon tasting along the way, because why not?
Why not?
So guys, please enjoy this episode and let us know your thoughts at Bourbon and Business Podcast on Instagram.
Coming to you from the Bourbon and Business Studio here at the AC Hotel in Ridgeland, Mississippi. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Dakota.
And this is the Bourbon and Business Podcast. How you doing?
Bet your bottom dollar it is, Tyler.
How you doing, Dakota?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. It kind of looks like I got a headband on this shadow from this hat on it. Does it look like it? Or is it maybe just because I'm far away from the camera?
It's just you, dude.
So maybe so. But yeah, so for those of you that are listeners of the podcast often and don't know, the reason I am not dressed in my normal attire I was actually hit by a car in a parking lot about a week ago, but doing fine. Got a little bit of a knee issue, but other than that,
you should see the car.
Gonna make a full recovery. Yeah, they had to tow the car afterwards. But
Total.
But other than that, doing great. But just for those that are wondering why I have a hat on and stuff, it's because I'm dealing with that.
I don't think anybody was wondering.
Well, so just gonna let them know. But
well, look, man, we're at the AC Hotel in Ridgeland, Mississippi. It's the premier hotel space here. They got great suites. They got breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They've got Mahjong group that meets here. They've got anything you could possibly want and more. If you're looking for a spot to have some business partners come in, some people from out of town, some family members, friends, whoever, be sure to put them up in the AC Hotel, and they will thank you for it.
Well, you want to introduce our guest for part 2 in case someone missed part 1?
Part 2, you guys will recognize this gentleman named Thom Neiheisel. He is the director of bulk whiskey sales and contract distillation at Pernod Ricard. Thom, welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
Glad to have you. And then what are we sipping on, Dakota?
We are sipping on, I love the name. I thought you would like the name too. It's called WhipperSnapper. I just feel like you're yelling at kids all the time to get off your lawn. So that was perfect. It's an Oregon spirit whiskey. They are admirably superior and well-mannered, according to the link.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, this is probably the first bottle we've had from Oregon that I can think of.
Yeah.
Maybe unless somebody
I don't know that there's too many from Oregon.
If somebody wants to go back and correct me on that. But
it's cold and wet there.
It's not my favorite. If I'm just being honest with you. Now, someone may drink this and love this. We always say that on here, it's all about your taste and what you like. Just not my taste. I might have to land at probably a 6.0 on it.
Wow.
I mean, it's stout, and I saw that it's only an 85 proof.
Yeah, 84.
Which is pretty phenomenal for that. But I'm gonna have to give it a 6.0. How much was this bottle? Do you remember?
It was like 40 or 50 bucks.
40 or 50 bucks. I mean, if you're interested in it, go to Cheers Vineyard in Gluckstadt, get you a bottle.
Give it a try.
Like I said, everybody's taste different. So you may love the bottle, but not my taste. So 6.0. Well, Thom, we appreciate you coming back on the podcast. We talked a little bit about your career and how you got to going at Pernod. And now we want to get more kind of in the nuts and bolts on the operations side. So kind of give our listeners just a breakdown of kind of what's your day-to-day world looks like.
Sure. So for those who didn't tune into the first one, I have responsibility for bulk sales and contract distillation at Pernod Ricard. So day to day, one of the things I love about this role is definitely no 2 days are the same. And it ranges literally from, we call it the nuts and bolts or blocking and tackling of bulk sales, which is literally cold calling, following up with customers who we haven't sold to, have sold to before, haven't heard from a while, right? Sales 101, right? Following up with them to managing existing agreements, contracts, being a regulated product, right? And a publicly held company, we have a very strict process that we have to follow, because when we sell aging inventory, right, you're actually selling an asset that's on our books, no different than any other competitors who are in the same space. When you're selling an asset that's on the books, So there's a series of legal documents. There's we call it a bulk sale agreement, which is a one-time, you're buying X number of barrels at X price. Here's the specs for the barrels, right? All the information that you would need to complete that ownership transfer, because again, those barrels are then, legally become the asset of another organization. There's the usual, we're quoting stuff, right? Making sure they have available inventory lists, fielding inquiries on what do you have available, quotes, and providing information where the barrels are at in various warehouses. So managing the quotation process, follow up, again, sales 101, finishing up sales, service after the sale, right? Because not everything goes perfectly smooth, right? There's some issue. And then there's the logistics piece. If individuals aren't storing their barrels with us, making sure the barrels are removed in a timely manner, helping them arrange trucking if we can, all that till the sale and the barrels are theirs and they're in their new happy home. So yes, there's a lot
awesome.
of
A whole lot.
scheduling trade shows, right? That's
Yeah.
always fun.
Did you get-
And yeah, talking your coworkers into helping you with trade shows, they love that.
Yeah.
So going to trade shows, following up from the trade shows, all of that.
Love a
and then
good trade
just
show.
typical
I would
day-to-day
love a
stuff.
trade show that had whiskey there.
I know.
That-
What kind of trade shows are you going to? We need to
A
pop in on
lot of
these.
them are the more frequent ones, if you will, or a lot of them are craft spirits. So
Mhm.
American Distilling Institute, right? They do a trade show, and then there's the
Nice.
American
We
Craft
gotta go to these
Spirits
conferences, Todd.
Association. They do a trade show every year, and then the Beam Institute, i.e. Jim Beam Institute at the University of Kentucky, they do a trade show. Distilled Spirits Council of the U.S. does a trade show. International Bulk Wine and Spirits show, which is a massive show in San Francisco every year. And then
So there's a lot.
we've been having international ones. So I just came back from Germany. There's one called Pro Spirits, used to be called Pro Wine.
I bet that's a fun
That's
one.
ones from all over the country, all over the world. It literally takes you 2 days to cover the whole thing if you're just walking it, right? Let alone if you have a booth there.
Wow.
So
Goodness gracious.
logistics on all that kind of stuff, and yeah. So
All right. Well, tell us about contract distilling, how it works, and how it impacts the industry.
sure. So contract distilling, first of all, is not new. Contract distilling, I'm going to go with up until about 10 years ago, was something that was very much done behind the scenes, right? People didn't talk about it. There wasn't a bulk sales and contract distillation director. There was someone who handled bulk sales and contract distillation. You knew somebody at a competitor or somewhere else, right? It was competitors making products for competitors, right? They had excess capacity at one of their distilleries. Somebody else had a need for something, and I was in that space as well in one of my roles. It's always been done. It was always behind the scenes. It's always been done in a major way, candidly. And then about 10 years ago, contract distillation, we call them pure play contract distillers, really came into their own and talked about contract distillation, right? For a long time, there was, almost like it was a bad thing if a craft distillery started up and bought liquid, to get them till their own liquid was 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I never subscribed to that, right? Because there's a lot of contract distillers making really good products.
Mm-hmm.
But it really became okay, if you will. Was a lot of bloggers and internet folks who were like, "Oh, it's terrible. They don't make their own liquid." Well, if you start up your own distillery, it's 4 years is a long time before you get any cash.
Very long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what people do started, buying aged liquid on the marketplace, right? i.e. bulk sales, to fill in that 4-year gap, right? And sometimes they'd make vodka and gin and things like that. But often they would buy some liquid on the open market till their own liquid came of age. And again, there was definitely two camps. There was a camp that's like, oh, that's done the wrong way. And then there was the camp that's like, 4 years is an awful long time not to make money, right? So I definitely fell in the camp of because some of the contract distillers did and still do make some really good liquid. So contract distilling's always been around. And again, I'm going to go with plus or minus 10 years ago. It really came into its own and people openly talked about it. And there were pure play contract distillation, organizations just, that was the only thing they did, right? It was they didn't even have their own brand. So it became more common. It became more openly talked about and acceptable, if you will. And then Pernod Ricard plays in that space as well, and particularly out of our Rabbit Hole facility in downtown Louisville. And the best way to describe it is we let others cook in our kitchen, right? So they give us the mash bill. We work very closely with customers on mash bill, cooking sequences, entry proof, barrel specifications, all those things. And they'll often hang out at the distillery while during the distillation or fermentation, distillation or barrel filling or all three process. And then, so we literally make bourbon for others and we're not the only ones doing it. Yeah.
What has that done for the industry as far as competition, since now it's not as taboo to talk about anymore? Now it's kind of out in the open. Everybody knows, everybody's doing it, and people are kind of owning up to it, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's good for the industry. Transparency is always good. Right.
Yep.
There's very few areas that transparency is not good. In fact, put in a plug for one of Pernod's brands, right? Smooth Ambler. One of our brands out of West Virginia was founded by John Little. He was the founder, started the company. He was one of the first, if not the first, to just say, bring it on. We buy our liquid until ours is ready.
Yeah.
We commingle our liquid. He blended a bourbon and a rye, both bought from the outside, that did very well, continues to do well. So I think it was good for the industry. I think better, the consumer at the end wins, right? With transparency. It also forced competition, right? It just forced competition is good. It forces everyone to get better. So I think ultimately which is the most important, the consumer won out. I think a lot of the taboo nature of it, which I never quite understood, is gone. There's still some people out there who wish for the old days, right? But I think it was good for everybody, particularly the consumer. So
Nice. You talked a little bit earlier about cold calling, and I want to go back to that. How big of a piece of your day-to-day is that? And how do you nurture relationships in a cold calling environment still, where there is so much competition?
yeah, and it ebbs and flows. I like to say from 8 to 10 every day at cold call. It really just depends on, we use it a bit of a gap filler, if you will.
Yeah.
To generate new business. I actually enjoy it because, again, I know I said it on the first episode, but I love the industry. I love the brands. I love the people that start the brands. So I actually enjoy it. And plus, when someone says, "Oh, I didn't realize Pernod, was in the bulk spirits, bulk sales and contract distillation space," that's always, it's good and it's bad, and I wish they would have known, right? Because we think everybody knows. So it's good. And plus, they may not have a need today, but they may have a need 6 months from now or 2 years from now.
Right.
But it's definitely a significant piece of it, right? And plus, brokers definitely have a very, very important role to play, but not every craft distillery wants to deal with a broker, right? And some craft distilleries are working on incredibly small, lean margins, so they look to cut out the broker. We're definitely not trying to cut them out because they have a very, very important role to play in our industry in the space. But some craft distillers are literally counting dollars per barrel, right, to keep their doors open. So
Makes sense.
it kind of ebbs and flows on the cold call piece, but it's definitely, some of it's even follow up, like from trade shows. I came back from Germany with no less than 50 plus leads, right, people to follow up with.
Yeah.
Who either didn't know, we've never talked to, right? They didn't know we're in the space, didn't have their contact information, that type of thing. So
What advice would you give to somebody who's young, who's getting started in their own business, and they have to cold call people, and they're terrified of the phone because it just seems to get heavier and heavier the more people you hear say no sometimes, what kind of guidance would you give that person?
oof. You're probably asking the wrong person because I'm very fortunate.
I'm asking for Tyler
Yeah,
specifically.
yeah, I'm very fortunate because I love the industry I work in, right? I mean, how many industries, do people have podcasts, right? And you get invited to participate in podcasts on bourbon. So we don't find it difficult. And this is coming from a person who's not a salesperson by training, right? I'm an operations person, but it sounds like a cop out, but it's easy for myself and my team because we love what we're doing, right? And it's easy to talk about contract distillation. It's a fun business. Products are fun. We like learning about the potential customers' products. So that's probably a bad question. I'm probably not the right person just because it's a great industry.
No, I think
so
that's
it makes it
important.
easy. Yeah.
I think you touched on a good thing there. For someone even looking to get into sales, you got to believe in what you sell.
Yep.
That's
you
it.
gotta
That's the
think
right
that-
answer.
You got to think it's a great product. And, if you think
Right.
that, hey, I can go out and sell, Sham Wows and make $1 million, you may be able to, if you actually
right.
believe
Hey,
a Sham Wow is a great product.
it is a great product.
But if you don't believe that, then you probably shouldn't sell Sham Wows. You should find something else to sell. And I think it all goes
Sham woes.
goes down to the belief. Do you believe in your product? If you believe in it, then you shouldn't have a problem talking to somebody.
I
That's
had somebody
probably the
tell me
better
one
answer.
time, you have to have conviction. Without that conviction, like you just said, Tyler, you're not going to be able to sell it because you have to fully believe without a doubt. That's the only way you're going to be able to overcome objections in a cold call situation or any kind of sales situation for that
Right.
matter. If you have to believe that your product stacked up against another is better. And if you believe that wholeheartedly, then you have a much better chance at winning the sale.
Yeah.
Well, and you touched on another good thing too, another gem I hope that listeners will pick up on. But you said, when you are talking to somebody and maybe it's not a good fit for them today, maybe they, decide, hey, we're not going to do business today. That doesn't mean a no forever.
Right.
That same person that you talked to, you planted that seed with them, a year from now, that need may come up and then they call you back and then you say, hey,
And boom.
I need it. But it's all about going out and making those contacts and being able to plant those seeds with people because over time it will pay off. And the longer you do it,
100%.
the more you see it.
Yeah, that's
Do you use
absolutely
the drip method, Tyler?
Yeah.
Dripping on them?
Yeah, I've never heard of the drip.
Are you serious?
No.
I've heard that a lot.
I've heard of
Skip.
like a drip email, maybe drip email campaign.
Yeah.
So
No, you look drippy today. Have you heard that reference?
yeah, I've heard that. A lot of people told me that on the way in here. So,
Good. Was it the crutches?
yeah, I'm sure that's what it
You
was.
should swag them up a little bit.
Well, tell our
Put some
listeners.
Louis Vuitton
Alright.
shoes on the bottom.
Thank you, Dakota.
Some red bottoms.
Tell our listeners a little bit about the excess inventory. So we're hearing about that. Hey, there's excess inventory and how that affects the liquor industry as a whole.
Sure. I mean, it's no secret, there's been many public announcements about distilleries pulling back. And this is, one of the things we alluded to in episode 1. Sales are down, retail sales, right? Bottles off the shelf are down, mid-single digits ish, depending on where you're at on the shelf. But the real reason, a lot of the distilleries are pulling back is just it's an inventory correction, right? Overproduction. But the general media wants to tie that to nobody's drinking anymore, right? Again, that's not the case. Sales being down single digits, not good, but not the end of the world. Okay.
Mhm.
What happened is just some overproduction, and everyone in the industry is it's just inventory corrections is what it is. But everyone wants to tie the two together, and they're not 100% correlated, if that makes sense, right? A little bit, but not as correlated as everyone would like them to be in the media. So there's definitely excess inventory in the marketplace. Thus the need for my role, right? If we didn't have any excess, I wouldn't be sitting here. I think one of the questions is going to be, how long is that going to last, right? Or how long will it take for that inventory correction to happen? If I knew the exact answer to that, I wouldn't be sitting here. I would have already placed some very large bets, all right, and be sitting on the beach or in the mountains somewhere. But it will take a bit of time, and that's the other thing we talked about. Long-term inventory planning. So the excess barrels that we have today were produced 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 years ago, right? So the inventory corrections that happen in our industry, this is one of the things that makes it very unique, is that they don't get solved overnight, right? Just like the excess inventory wasn't created overnight, the solution is not going to happen overnight. How long? I don't know. But it's going to be a bit, and that is hard for people to wrap their heads around because today's society, so used to quick answers and quick solutions and things changing very quickly. Well, when you have a product that ages for years, there's no way that, excess inventory or that quote unquote problem is going to get solved quickly.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. And it's really the craft guys that are going to solve it.
Yeah.
That's the end of this, because if you have excess inventory, it has to be consumed, right?
Yeah.
It can't just be moved from one owner to another. It ultimately has to be consumed. And that's where the craft guys come into play. For the most of the bulk ends up in the craft market. Yeah. So we need a healthy craft industry out there, to reduce this bit of excess that's in the market. So.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, because we hear this in a lot of industries now, really industries that are doing great. You hear about private equity, coming in and being part of the industry. How is private equity playing a role in the spirit world?
Private equity came in and made a lot of big plays as investments, barrels as investments. And it wasn't necessarily a bad idea, but there was a lot of them, right? Because barrels can still be a good investment, but you really, really have to be patient. And I think that's, again, the world at large is not patient anymore, right? At all.
Right.
So I think,
especially private equity.
Yeah, and in distilled spirits, I think it's a tough place to play. They do, and again, you'll hear people go, "Oh, that's what caused all this excess." Not really. Maybe not. But they have a place. I think, like the industry as a whole, there will be some settling out. Right. Mm-hmm. There will always be some private. There'll always be a place, and there will be solid players from the private equity space in our industry. Mm-hmm. Buying, holding barrels, buying brands, right? But they have to go in with eyes wide open that this is not going to be a commodity flip, right? It's a long-term game. So that's where I think there's going to be a little bit of falling out. Some people will blame them. I don't, right? I think there's maybe too many of them came in, right? That's what happens, right? When something is hot, everybody jumps in. But I don't think it's a bad model. I think there might be too many of them, or was too many of them, right? But even that's thinning out quite a bit. So,
well, I think you're seeing that in every industry. I don't think it's just specific to spirits. I think every industry, you've seen a lot of private equity pour in. And it's changed the landscape of everything. But I think now you're more in a time, like you said, now you'll see everything kind of settle out.
Yeah.
And the top players rise to the top. And I mean, that's always kind of been how it's worked out anyways.
Yeah, it's worked for me like that. So I completely understand. Thom, my last question for you here is, we're kind of like rounding home, is what's the oldest barrel you've ever seen or heard of?
That's a good question. I've ever put my hands on was 25 years old.
Wow. Did you try it?
Did not. That particular barrel. I tasted 23-year-old though. More than
was it good?
What was that like?
It was good. Yeah. And it's a dangerous game, right? I mean, 23 years old, it can be.
Yeah, if you're in a level 5 barrel at 23 years old, that's probably tasting like dirt at that point.
Yeah, it's we say in the industry, like chewing on a stave, right? But this wasn't like that.
Yeah.
This was really, I think that particular barrel, because all the barrels can still have a little bit of nuances to them.
Yeah.
That particular barrel, that particular part of the warehouse. No, I've had 23-year-old more than once. It was really good. But 10, 12 is kind of the generally acknowledged sweet spot, right? 8 to 12 is the generally acknowledged sweet spot. You get beyond then, and it almost becomes a gamble, right?
Yeah.
What's going to happen to that liquid in the barrel? You can have 8-year-old all day long. It's going to be pretty amazing, and it's pretty low risk. You get beyond 12, it's like, this could go either way, right?
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Oh, man, what's Jim doing back there again, man? We got a 13 or 15 coming out. What are we doing?
Yeah.
Good deal. Well, we appreciate you coming back on for a second episode to get more in-depth view of what you do. And again, if you want to figure out, hear more about Thom's career, go back and listen to the first episode, and then
listen to it again.
Yeah. And then tell our listeners again, I know you've already told us, but
Sure.
How can they find you on LinkedIn? And then, of course, find Pernod as well on social medias and the internet as well.
Sure. On LinkedIn.
There's more than one.
Yeah, it's under Thom, Thom, Neiheisel, Neiheisel at Pernod Ricard, Director of Bulk Sales. And then to learn more about Pernod as an organization, it's PERNOD-RICARD.com.
Great.
Well, Thom, thank you so much for coming on. Tyler, since you asked, my opinion on the
Oh,
bourbon
yeah, sorry.
is,
I didn't care to hear it.
it's not great. So I don't know that anybody cares to hear it, honestly. The flavor's a bit off for me. I'm going to call it wonky. That's the word that came to mind as I sipped it. It's got like a weird, man, I don't know. It's like it's just wonky, man. I'm going to land at a 5.5.
Yeah. Yeah, not my favorite, but like I said, somebody may drink this and they think, hey, it's the best thing since sliced bread. So, go try it out, get you a bottle, tell us what you think about it, send us a message, tell us we're idiots and we don't know what we're talking about, and we'll be fine with that as well. And however you stream it though, give us a rating. Don't tell us we're idiot there. Give us a 5-star rating, and then we will see you next week.
Hope you guys enjoyed this episode.
If you have any feedback or would like to be featured, reach out to us at bourbonandbusinesspodcast@gmail.com.
Or find us on Instagram at Bourbon and Business Podcast.
Thanks again for listening.
Follow us for more content and info on the next episode.